Snake's battle with the end is when he lost his innocence, when he became Snake Eater.
I give my life, not for honor, but for you.
Metal Gear Solid has always had this motif of a difference between the old generation of soldiers and a new generation of soldiers. We went from the Cobra unit's heroism in World War II to soldiers like Big Boss redefining war during his mercenary exploits in Cuba, to Solid Snake's creation paving the way for the Genome soldiers in MGS1, to the Patriots figuring out how to mind program a soldier with Raiden in MGS2, and eventually using those methods on the whole of mankind's youth by the time of MGS4. The new generation always replaces the old, and it always does it without passion or meaning. War is always changing with its soldiers. Naked Snake's battle with the end is the first of these transitions. As his name implies, the end marks the end of a more noble generation of soldiers, one who fought with purpose rather than blindly following orders as every Snake player character tends to. You could even say that the end's death marks the end of war itself and the beginning of meaningless mercenary combat. Just as with Solid Snake and Gray Fox, these two probably would have been peaceful friends under different circumstances. That's the whole thematic purpose of the fight, a transition, both in Snake and in the nature of war itself. This is most blatantly alluded to in the cutscene at the end of the fight.
The time has come for a younger generation to rise. I've been wandering for more than a century, and now my journey comes to a close.
However, there's much more going on in this fight than that cutscene. When you meet the end, and he speaks to Snake from across the forest, he refers to you as his final prey, and says you'll make a fine quarry for his final hunt. However, he exclusively uses non-lethal rounds, and if you do pass out while fighting him, he carries you back to the prison to try again. He also says he's going to send you to your ultimate fate. Both of these suggest that he intends to kill Snake. While the end doesn't take Snake's life, he does kill him, and it's not by sending him back to the prison. He doesn't kill Snake until Snake kills him. Snake continues living, but this is when he goes from being Naked Snake to being a Snake Eater, consuming the Cobra unit without passion, meaning, or understanding, like so many reticulated pythons before. It's no coincidence that the Krasnogorja tunnel ladder scene is immediately after this fight, where the Snake Eater theme plays as Snake climbs the ladder. This is Naked's new theme song after all. That title, Snake Eater, has a ton of different meanings. Another one that applies here is that Snake himself is being eaten away by this mission, working so hard just to kill someone who he loved beyond description. The end fight is a perfect example of Snake being eaten away at. While you can do it non-lethally, I think the most obvious and most common way of beating the end for a first playthrough is to use the sniper rifle to kill him. He uses non-lethal rounds, but Snake is most likely to use lethal rounds, signifying both the end of that era and the fact that Snake is being prodded to use lethal force against someone who technically barely qualifies as a threat to his life. Snake was eaten away by this fight, and by Operation Snake Eater in general, and in turn he becomes the Snake Eater. The Krasnogorja tunnel ladder scene seems to represent the young idealistic Green Beret ascending to heaven so that Snake Eater, aka Big Boss, the villain of the series, can take his place. Like I said, this fight represents a transition between the old, honorable soldiers of World War II and the dispassionate mercenary nations the Big Boss would go on to create. Naked Snake is caught right in the middle of this transition, going from being an honorable, idealistic soldier to the world's icon for dispassionate combat. This is why Naked's sneaking suit is pitch black while the boss's is white. The boss's arena is purely white. She belongs on the battlefield. Snake only exists to taint the battlefield by the end of the game. So, other than the cutscene before and after the battle and the ladder climb, and the fact that Snake is most likely to use lethal force against a non-lethal opponent, how else does this fight represent this idea? Well, one of my favorite subtle touches in this fight is the weather, and more specifically how it changes throughout the fight. Hideo Kojima originally wanted this fight to last 1 to 2 weeks real time, but for obvious reasons that wasn't implemented. As a way of representing a battle between generations, that would have been a great idea. However, the simplified final version of the fight supplements this extremely long, drawn-out battle with weather that changes over the course of the fight. Considering that it's still the longest and quietest fight in the game, this weather effect does a fantastic job at emphasizing that same idea of a lengthy battle between generations throughout time. First you enter, and it's an unremarkable clear day, but as the fight carries on, it starts raining, with the end's footprints and sounds appropriately obscured by the rain, before eventually turning back to sunrise, with the sun causing morning fog to rise from the now wet ground, and a rainbow or two to appear by this waterfall. These weather conditions are just emphasized by one little secret to this fight. If you manage to sneak up on the end, you can hold him up, and if you keep him at gunpoint for long enough, he'll give in and give you his camouflage. The Moss camo has the bonus trait of making you photosynthetic. You regenerate stamina when standing in a light source.
Interesting. It seems to have part of the end's power sealed within it. If you wear it in a place where the sun shines, you'll automatically recover stamina.
As a result, the temporary rainfall continues to make this fight a bit harder, and when the sun comes out again, you're going to be paying attention to where it's shining. The Moss camo is very helpful for this fight, as the end uses tranquilizer rounds, so this just gets you to notice the weather conditions even more. This exaggeration of time ties in incredibly well with the way that the end's ghillie suit turns red as an autumn when he dies. Regardless of that, the dark rain that makes the gameplay harder, followed by the beautiful mist, rainbows, and sunshine that makes the gameplay easier, is a great way of abstractly showing what might be going on in both the End and Naked Snake's heads during this fight. This is a bittersweet moment for both of them. The End, realizing that the next generation of soldier that his death will give way to is dispassionate and uncaring, and Snake realizing that he has no choice but to kill a man he probably has a great deal of respect for. If you want some concrete evidence that Snake wants to take the End seriously, just look at his reaction to finding the End dead of old age if the player waits a week to continue the fight.
Well, Snake, the victory is yours.
No, I don't think so.
What do you mean?
It was his dying wish to fight me, but I disappointed him.
Snake, listen to yourself. This is a mission. It's not a game, it's not a sport. You think you're competing for the gold at Tokyo or something?
The End is the only boss who doesn't have unique music. While the encounter with the Sorrow is definitely the low point of Naked's journey, the End is the most lonely he ever gets over the course of the game. He's completely isolated from his ideology, and he stands alone from here on out. The End did destroy Snake. After realizing how much he lost himself to the point where he's isolated even from himself and the music, all he has left is his fury, and after that, his sorrow. The 5 members of the Cobra unit each take something away from Snake with their defeat, and it's because he lost so much of his unique personality over the course of the game that he's able to defeat Boss. After killing Boss, he's lost his joy too, and without pain, fear, respect, fury, sorrow, or joy, he has no personality outside of what he is to the player, a gun. This theme throughout these boss fights ties in perfectly with my ideas about MGS3's ending, that it represents Snake acknowledging that there's no point in having passion for your battle, because his existence is nothing but a contrivance to accommodate the player and a new Metal Gear game. By the end of MGS3, Naked Snake is the perfect mercenary, but not the perfect soldier. The Cobras were the perfect soldiers. Snake managed to surpass them only by slowly letting himself be eaten away by his mission, and reducing himself to nothing but a gun.